Hey folks, welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. An interesting situation is developing in South African political landscape. In the election of 2024, Herman Mashaba's ActionSA party garnered 6 seats in the national parliament. But they didn't join the government of national unity. 10 parties joined, many of them very small, like the Good Party, Rise and Mzansi. And of course, larger parties, the ANC, the Lead Party, the Democratic Alliance. ANC bringing 159 seats, the Democratic Alliance 87. Then you got the Patriotic Alliance, Gate McKenzie with 9 seats, Freedom Front Plus with 6 seats, and you see some smaller parties in there. So a total of 10 parties, including Al Jamaa, Rise and Mzansi, Good Party. So together, those members of the government of national unity hold 286 seats in the parliament. That's a comfortable margin out of a 400-seat situation. But anytime you have a 400-seat parliament, but anytime you have 87 seats in your second largest party, and if they don't agree with you and they vote against a proposal like the pending budget proposal in South Africa, then you're kind of stuck. So the Democratic Alliance has held all the cards, at least until now. It appears that Herman Mashaba is clever like a fox, or at least his members of parliament are under Athol Trollop's leadership and Beasley negotiating. They've been talking to the ANC about passing a budget without the Democratic Alliance. Now, what would that mean? Well, News 24 would claim that that means the government of national unity collapses. Well, I don't agree with that. There's no reason for the government of national unity to collapse because of one vote. It could, it's possible, but the DA could vote against the budget proposal and then still stay in the coalition and vote in favor of other things. You know, one vote doesn't collapse a coalition. But aside from that, if the DA were to leave, could the ANC continue? Well, that would leave the ANC with 199 votes, not enough, but if ActionSA brings its 6 seats over to join the coalition, suddenly the government of national unity is still at 10 members with the DA leaving and ActionSA joining the government of national unity, and now you have 205 members, a narrow, thin margin, but you can still pass things. Of course, that begs the question, would the DA be the only party to leave should such a situation occur? I'm certain that smaller parties like Rise and Mzansi and the Good Party will go along and get along, and even probably General Bento-Holomisi's UDM will stay in the government. But it does raise a question about what would the Inkatha Freedom Party with its 17 seats and the Freedom Front Plus do. Now, there's been a lot of ill will and bad blood between the Freedom Front Plus and the Democratic Alliance for a long time. Would the Freedom Front Plus abandon the coalition? That would be enough to push them back down below the 200 seats. But more importantly, the real player in this is Belenkosi Lapisa's Inkatha Freedom Party with 17 seats. They are the kingmaker right now. So ActionSA, at the moment, I think they fancy themselves as the kingmaker. But in reality, the kingmaker here is probably the Inkatha Freedom Party. Because what the Inkatha Freedom Party does or does not do vis-a-vis the budget could determine whether the government of national unity survives and how it survives, what form it survives in. Would the IFP back the DA? In some respects, they have very close ties, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, but will that work at the national level? That remains to be seen. But ActionSA is the clever one here. They stayed out of the GNU last year. They sat on the back bench making comments about foolish decisions of government and looking very fine and like a party that wants to govern, while the government of national unity got embroiled in the Bella nonsense, the Expropriation Without Compensation Act, and then the 3% black tax. Those are all things that the ActionSA party's been able to stay out of the debate on. So they're not tarnished or tainted by any of those conversations. Now, a year later, they're looking at joining the government of national unity potentially. But even if they don't join it, they just vote for this budget, it would at least get South Africa past this budget impasse. So what are they offering? Well, let's see. They are talking about a 30-day pause in the budget process. Not sure how that works, but that would delay the vote on the budget for another 30 days while the finance ministry goes back and works the numbers. ActionSA says that the lost revenue from their plan would be about 28 billion rand, and the government finance ministry says it's more like 31.5 billion rand. And that's because the personal income tax tables would not be adjusted for inflation and the VAT increase would not occur. The VAT increase is a big deal. So maybe the DA votes for this budget that the ActionSA guys are proposing, I'm not sure. But the sticking point so far has been that the ANC is unwilling to govern in a coalition. They want to play it's my way or the highway, you do what we say or we're not going to cooperate. And that is not how coalitions governments work. Fair enough, the ANC has no concept of coalition government. They are not really had any coalitions that are genuine coalitions. The few they've had at the municipal level, they've dominated and played it's my way or the highway. But they need to take a page from how things are conducted in Europe, where coalitions are the norm, and start being humble and work with your partners and compromise. And that's how we got to CODESA, the Convention for Democratic South Africa. That's how we negotiated the end of apartheid, was compromise. But the ANC has no interest in compromise, despite the fact they're not a majority party. And at some point, they're going to learn that the hard way. Will it be over this budget? I can't say. One thing I can say is, clever like a fox, Herman Mashaba's ActionSA is suddenly in the mix, and suddenly they are the player, at least when it comes to this budget. We'll see what happens going forward, but there you have it. So, budget negotiations still under discussion. The vote was supposed to be this week. Doesn't look like that's going to take place now. Will the government of national unity survive? I think it can survive this, even if the Democratic Alliance doesn't vote for the budget, whatever that may be. The DA could, of course, throw their toys out of the pram and walk away from the GNU because they're angry over a budget, but that's up to the DA. So, going forward, will ActionSA join the government of national unity? Will the DA leave? More questions to be answered. Stay tuned to this Bat channel, as they used to say back in the day. All right, folks, thanks a lot. Cheers. Catch you next time here on Chris White Africa.